Hello everyone, I'm here with Tech Motorsports and it is E92 time. Yeah, E92. So this vehicle belongs to one of my good buddies, Mr. Dylan Dana. As Mr. Dana starts growing a little bit more cojones, he starts to push the car a little bit more and the temps start to go up. So that's what it's here for. That's what we're going to take care of. We got numerous of stuff that we're going to go ahead and replace. And once you open a certain stuff and you're in that area, it's best to go ahead and replace a bunch of the stuff. Precautionary, so just in case something goes wrong, you don't have to open it up at a later point. So also I do want to touch base that if you could see in the background, there's my E46 M3. Now that thing, I'm trying to get ready for the next race that I got coming up, and that is coming up soon. And what I've been having lately, mainly more this year, actually it's the tail end of last year and the beginning of this year, I've had it that my brake pedal has been going a little long, and at one point I have to pump it a couple times. So time to replace the brake master slave on that thing. Not slave, brake master's cylinder. So I'll be doing that while I am in between components, letting stuff drain on this one. So yeah, so let's look at all the tidbits and all the new parts that we're going to be installing. So I have to end up redoing this clip. The audio did not pick up the first time around. So let's get into it. So here are the parts that I am going to be installing. I have the radiator, I have the oil cooler and the heater hose, coolant hose and heater hose kit from DO88. Also, we'll be replacing both belts while we're at it. And then we've got the thermostat housing, the thermostat, the water pump, and also the O-rings for the little cylinder, little tubes that connect to the thermostat housing, and also the power steering pump with technically two hoses. Now, when you're looking at the power steering pump or the power steering system, there's a bunch of hoses to replace down there. So we were kind of looking at where do we nip it in the bud, because as you keep going, you remove parts, then you access another part. So we decided just to leave those lines intact. The same thing with the idler pulleys. It just gets to a point to where it's like, when do you stop? So so if you notice, I have this assembled, and one of the clips down the road, it is torn apart. As I stated, I had to redo the clip. So all I ended up doing is I took the old one, I took it all up in one whole piece, and I just put it on the table and just attached everything together. So I got the clamp on this section here, which is one piece, and then this hose right here is another piece. So so she came out pretty darn close to the original one, so it should go on very, very, very easy. So so that's pretty much it with that, and I'm just gonna get back to tearing stuff apart. Okay, so I already had and removed the under trays. All of these vehicles pretty much come with the under trays now. So one of the things I did not mention earlier was we're going to send off an oil sample to Blackstone, so we can see if there's any copper, any of that stuff in the oil, just to see where we are with the bearings on this motor. Now, the bearings have been replaced about 50 or 51,000 miles on the odometer. The car has 95,000 miles on there now, but the oil sample has been sent out at 71,000 to Blackstone previously, so we're just going to go ahead and stay with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop some of the oil. I'm not going to take any from the beginning. I'm going to take some. I'm probably going to let about 3/4 to a quart drain, and then I'm going to grab a sample and then let the rest of it drain. I'm going to start with the lower section first, and then I'm going to drain the one up top. So yeah, let me get to it. All right, so got the radiator drained, and what I end up doing up top is I release the cap off of the surge tank, so that way it just comes down straight and it doesn't gurgle and do all crazy splatter and everything. So yeah, so now it's just I'm gonna go to the top and start taking off whatever stuff on top, and then go from there. All right, so I have a small little clip here on this side of the radiator, which is on the driver side, left side, and the one screw right here. All right, so I've got a lot of the stuff, additional hoses removed from the front, and now I'm just starting to work my way around because we're going to be replacing a bunch of the heater hoses as well. So right now I've already went ahead and take the back section of the cowl off. Those are just a couple, well, I had mixed bolts. I had 8mm and then I had a Torx one. So we got those two off over there, and we're going to go ahead and get the plenum off, and then these strut towers here, because I know these two heater hoses that are right here are going to have to come off. So we're going to go ahead and get to that point, and yeah, so yeah, we'll just keep plugging away at it. I'll tune in here in a minute. So I got the plenum off. So just yeah, there was a little bit of pain to try to get to the little hoses, but not so bad as long as they're clocked in the right direction, which if it was installed it should be. But yeah, so I just had to be careful to disconnect this hose here, which is up here in the front, down here towards the bottom. And then I also had this connector here, which is down there, which is one of those press-on clip ones. And that was it, just to take those off. And here's the breather tube section, which is this piece to this and these. That just slide right over that. So there's really nothing to do with those. They stay the same. So I had no issues taking those off. But yeah, so this now will give me more room to be able to replace the heater hoses back in the back, and yeah, so I'm going to keep plugging away at it. Okay, so now that I've got the plenum removed, I went ahead and reclocked all my hoses, or the hose clamps for the individual throttle bodies. That way, in case I forget when I do that, I don't have to worry about removing it. But I went ahead and reclocked those. There's a little slot that you can see on the fuel rails to where your socket will normally go to tighten them. So yeah, so that's a kind of nice telltale there. They do have a little bit of like a rubber stopper in the back, but all these are kind of like bent inward. So they're, you know, they'll probably help, so that way when you tighten them, it doesn't go behind it for the next person to take it off. So so very nice. I went ahead and covered up all the open orifices on the engine, so all the individual throttle bodies and the PVCs and the intake. I got shop towel in there, so that way that make sure nothing falls in there. So yeah, so by doing that, getting everything up, I went ahead and removed all my my belts. So this is the Serpentine belt. It's a dual ribbed Serpentine belt, so it's ribs on both sides. And this is the first one that needs to be removed. This connects to your AC and the power steering. And here is the pulley. This pulley has to come off, because this sucker is technically right behind the oil lines going to the oil filter housing for the oil cooler. And with this little puppy in the way, you cannot get this belt out, so you have to remove this pulley. Okay, so now that this pulley and everything's done, the other belt came off nice and easy. And yeah, so the next step I'm going to end up doing is start working on removing the thermostat housing and the actual water pump, so that I can get the remaining coolant that's in the engine out, and go from there. So yeah, let's keep plugging away. So I end up having to remove the Torx bolt that is here on the fuel rail, and then one over here on this side right here, so that I can take this pipe off, which is connected to the fuel rail, so I can get it off the clips right here for the thermostat housing. Now what I end up doing is I just stuck a screwdriver in between here and barely pried up. I didn't completely remove the injectors or the fuel rail. It's just slightly propped up a tad bit, so I can just get enough clearance to be able to take this out, because the hard line is connected to this little plastic piece here. So at that point, it's got to slide forward. So yeah, and one thing I did fail to mention earlier is I did remove the coolant tank, and I did that so that I could get to these the intake hose clamps a little bit better when I was taking the intake plenum off. So yeah, so I'm going to keep plugging away at it. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm using two of the bolts that came off the water pump, and there's 2 two holes on each side of the water pump, and they're threaded, and that is to install the bolts so that you can pull the water pump out little by little. So it makes it very easy to remove, so you don't have to worry about trying to stick a screwdriver or anything in there. So that's what I'm working on now. So there we go. Gonna replace it. We have a metal impeller one to replace it with instead of the plastic one. So so sweet. All right, so I've got the water pump and the thermostat housing and two little tubes right there going into the into each head or towards the block. I got those all cleaned up. I got them all covered up. So now what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to jump to the power steering. That is another thing that we're going to be doing to the car is the power steering pump and that little elbow with a hose that connects down underneath with the line that feeds the reservoir right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that done, replace that, because I want to go ahead and at least get that part done before I start messing with the water pump and everything. So I want to do that, and then once I get done with that, what I'm going to end up doing is I'm probably going to go ahead and remove the bumper and get that going to start messing with the oil cooler itself. So I'm going to keep plugging away. For the power steering pump, I'm going to remove the pulley first. So I have three 13 mil bolts here that I'll be removing. I'm going to loosen the banjo nut, get that going as well, and then once I take the pulley out, I'm going to have the 13 mil bolts that are going to be holding the pump to the actual motor itself. Now, down towards the bottom behind all this, here is that little L-shaped looking tube. That sucker's pretty much going to go, if you're looking straight at it, it's going to go something about like that. So I'll be able to get to this little puppy here once I remove the pump. So yeah, that's going to be the game plan, and I already got my my oil pan down at the bottom to catch all the power steering fluid. So yeah, let me get straight to it. So I took a few minutes and I needed to go ahead and clean the thermostat housing. So I have where the thermostat would go, and then those two little those circular O-ring thingies. All these have been cleaned. The old ones do leave a little bit of a residue all the way around, so you got to make sure that's clean. These have been cleaned as well. So I should be ready to get everything installed. Don't know if I mentioned that, but the thermostat itself housing, that area is clean on the engine. So now what I'm going to end up doing is start with the installation of the power steering pump. So I'm going to get that going and just work my way up and get that taken care of, and go with the thermostat housing, the water pump, and so forth and so forth. So yeah, so let's keep plugging away at it. Almost forgot about this little bad boy. Got my new crush washers. So she's all back together now. Got the power steering pump with the hose attached. Did the water pump and the thermostat housing with the thermostat. As you can see, I use my electric ratchet and the electric little impact just to get them going. And then I went back and tightened them with the ratchet. So what I ended up doing for the power steering pump, they're in the shaft. There's an Allen bolt or Allen in. So you can put an Allen wrench in there. I use that to hold the shaft in place and then tighten it down. Also, when I was there, I went ahead and secured the fuel rails and the tube above the thermostat housing. So I got that all taken care of. The sensor is also plugged in. As you can see in the time lapse, I went ahead and used lubrication on the O-rings, and I used WD-40. I'd love to use WD-40. It goes in and it will dry up, so it's not an oily substance that stays there constantly. So yeah, the next step would be to install the water pump pulley and then the pulley itself with the serpentine belts. I'm gonna hold off on that, and the reason why is just in case I have to take some back off. I'm gonna hold off on that. But I'm going to either jump on the oil cooler installation, which is removing a bumper, or actually start replacing the heater hose or the hose kit that I got from DO88, and go from there. So yeah, we'll soon find out which job I choose. So let's get straight to it. Okay, so I've decided to call this one part one. Looking at what I got ahead of me, it's going to take a little bit more time, and I don't want to make this video too long. So yeah, so this is pretty much the end of part one. Like always, guys, hit the like button, subscribe, and hope to see you in part two.